So I am not a YouTuber by any means, so this video is going to be not very well recorded, and I'm not going to do fancy jump cuts or any of that. What I will do is say that I feel like I have enough reason to speak at length. So, Marjorie Taylor Greene, although you will not see this video and I will not get a view count, this video is for you. In an article posted yesterday in The Hill, you had reacted in a closed-door briefing about the Chinese balloon that has been making the news for the better part of a week. Before the State of the Union address, you went so far as to make a spectacle of yourself by carrying around a white balloon and trying to grandstand about what sort of actions should have been taken and when it should have been taken on behalf of the American people. And on behalf of the American people and somebody who lives in the flight path of that balloon, I would like you to know a few things. First, by the time it was spotted, it was already over land. The Pentagon admitted that 3 such balloons had slipped detection under the previous administration. If they are to be doubted as falling prey to control solely as partisan optics, why would we trust the Department of Defense with nukes? When it comes down to it, what they are capable of, we have to be able to trust at any given time, or you can fund them to increase their capabilities in ways that matter, instead of just increasing our arms sales to foreign countries. I digress. The previous administration also can't be faulted for failure to act if we do not or have not had a viable means of detecting such objects. And any argument based on subjective claims of should have had the capability given the political climate is a moot point. Why? Because we are all quite familiar with spy satellites. China has a lunar rover. They can certainly afford a spy satellite. The US, Russia, the UK, China, name a political unit, and they have unquestionably participated in espionage. Now, it's not time to be flailing about with a surprised Pikachu face. It should absolutely be driven home that spy satellites exist. We can accomplish at 600 to 1,200 miles what a balloon is capable of doing at 11 miles of altitude. Getting away from all of the political backstory to it, let's actually get into the numbers of it. What would it have looked like if they had shot it down over land? Well, the balloon was at an altitude of 11.36 miles, or 60,000 feet. The Pentagon estimated that its payload was the physical size of multiple school buses, but more importantly, that it weighed a couple thousand pounds. To be conservative in my estimate, let's go ahead and take that literally and say that it weighed 2,000 pounds exactly. Using a couple of basic formulas and some online calculators for the complex physics of it, let's talk about the airspeed first. The balloon traveled from Montana to the East Coast, passing through my town of St. Joseph, Missouri, at one point, roughly about 3,380 miles in 7 days, or roughly 168 hours. So, given that information, the balloon's horizontal trajectory would have been about 20 miles per hour. Now let's hold on to that for a minute because it will be important. The free fall motion, once it was shot down, so when we decided to shoot it, at any point that we shot it down, free fall, accounting for air resistance, given a mass of 2,000 pounds, an altitude of 60,000 feet, and a gravitational acceleration of 32.176 feet per square meter, and an air resistance coefficient of 0.24 kilograms per meter. Sorry, some of these are going to be in metric, and some of these are going to be in imperial units, because that's how the US works, so go us. It would have fallen for 190 seconds and reached a max terminal velocity of 431 miles per hour when it hit the ground. That being said, its kinetic energy, given its mass and its velocity, would be about 16,838.87 kilojoules, or, in freedom units, roughly 8 pounds of TNT. Now, the horizontal projectile motion is also important because when you shoot something in the air, it's not necessarily going to fall straight down. That's when that 20 miles per hour airspeed comes into play, and the fact that there's a whole bunch of air that's going to, increase the possible area that it could hit. So the horizontal projectile motion, given its initial velocity and its height, it has a maximum horizontal distance and an arc with a radius of 1/3 of a mile. That means that wherever it is shot down, it might travel from that point in the sky, 60,000 feet, to 1/3 of a mile away in a pretty sizable area. So trying to predict where this is going to hit is not something that you just get to do. Back to the 8 pounds of TNT. That doesn't sound like a whole awful lot, but luckily there's a calculator for blast damage provided by the UN. So damage to windows is at a high hazard for multiple distances. Small windows are safe, are unlikely to break past 131 feet. Large windows are susceptible to damage at 475 feet. Now remember, 475 feet from the point of impact, which is anywhere within 1/3 of a mile. You can feel the ground vibration from it hitting from about 200 feet away. Now, luckily, a fatal injury is only going to happen if it lands within 12 feet of you, but eardrum rupture can happen within 48 feet of you. Now let's talk about damage to brick structures. From 2.5 feet, it would demolish an entire house. 8 pounds of TNT can do that. But even as far away as 23 feet, the house would need serious repairs, however remaining habitable. But when we want to talk about what kind of damage can happen when you shoot something down that has time to accelerate towards Earth at 9.8 meters per second squared, then we can know that at the very least, Biden was advised not to shoot it down over land. Given the above numbers, it is easy to see why. If you want to claim that shooting it down was absolutely necessary, I will not argue that opinion. I will, however, strongly advise you to read up on international law related to defensive airspace before claiming any action is entirely defensible. I will post a link to one of Professor Devon Stone's LegalEagle videos if you need someone to hold your hand throughout it, however. Lastly, while I know that you cannot be bothered to trust mathematics or physics, Derek Muller over at Veritasium has luckily just recently posted a video here on YouTube which illustrates why, even with GPS precision, it is exceptionally hard to predict where a falling object will land. He tried to drop a weight 1/10 the mass of the balloon from roughly 3% the balloon's altitude. They could not effectively predict its landing. I'll link his Rods from God video below too. I would like to sign off on this video with one thing. In the Hill's February 9th article regarding your antics during the closed-door briefing on the balloon, you were reported as arguing the following, quote, "I chewed them out just like the American people would have," and "You're nothing but excuses and it's wrong, and I'm just telling you this is how the American people see it and it's a serious problem." And lastly, I quote again, "They allowed it to go across the country and there was nothing they told us in there that gave us a good reason to think that they made the right move. As a matter of fact, they made the wrong move." End quote. Well, here is what I would like to say to you. If we would like to talk about the optics from an American citizen in the flight path's point of view, you can take your matters of fact back to an 11th grade science course. This time, please take notes. I would like to give a special thanks, which is owed to the Department of Defense and to the President's sensible course of action for not putting countless lives at risk for a bit of political theater. Sorry, my camera app force closed before I got to finish with a good tagline. Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're an idiot, and I can prove it mathematically. Eat my asshole.